We're going to go through every one of these?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to our very crowded table here. I'm far closer to Ryan, and I'm sure he's far closer to me than we ever wanted to be. That's not true. But we are here because we are smashed between all of these games that we got. We're fortunate enough to pick up at Gen Con. And I got to tell you, first and foremost, Ryan, when we went into Gen Con, I didn't think it was going to be as an exciting show as it ended up being in terms of releases and games.
It really did give a chance for the smaller publishers to shine. Yeah. I was really worried with the big publishers bowing out, but there was a lot of great content from the publishers that did come. I mean, I feel like they've been kind of holding off on their releases to release a bunch of great stuff at Gen Con, and people that were there have been holding off on buying things for a year, and they were ready to just buy. Yeah. So it was, the excitement was there, the energy was there, people were being safe, people were following the mandates, which I was pleasantly surprised to see, and it ended up being a really great Gen Con, and we brought back a lot of really great stuff, some of which we wanted to actually take time and talk about today, show you, because these games will be available retail, they'll be available online. If you're going to Origins next week, you should be able to find them there possibly as well. So
yeah, so hopefully you saw some of our Gen Con coverage while
that was a lot. That was so much fun.
So if you haven't, check that out. But we are going to talk about some of these games that we have here, and also this will probably serve as effectively our Gen Con wrap-up.
Yeah.
Jeremy was down here, and Jeremy Howard and I did a Gen Con preview, and I guess now you and I will bookend that with this wrap-up.
I want to hear at the end what games you actually got that were on your preview. Did you get most of them or see most of them?
Some of them, yes. Okay. Some of them, no. We definitely saw a lot of them, but I don't know if we walked away with any. Do you want to start? What games do you have over there?
Let me start. Let's start
with one. We're going to try to unpile these as we go.
We're going to unpile these and talk about them briefly, because I want to talk about this one, the Rocketeer, which somehow I completely missed that this was even coming out. I saw it at the Funko booth. They had it on display. I thought that this looked absolutely gorgeous on the table. I love the Rocketeer. So we definitely made sure to grab this one. I'm not going to talk too much about it because we actually live streamed this.
Yeah, we did have a full gameplay of it.
We fully played this last Wednesday. So if you look on our channel right now, you can fully see everything you want to know about this game. But it was a fun two-player experience. I mean, it was a very thematic Rocketeer game.
Yeah, we had fun on the live stream. It is a two-player like lane battler with cards.
That's cool.
That's really well steeped in the universe, and it's incredibly well produced.
Funko game. So make sure that you don't want. I mean, this is great. Their IP stuff has been phenomenal lately.
They are one of the companies that are doing IP games the way IP games should have always been done. I'm going to start. I'm going to start up here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I don't want these to fall down on me. Interesting story about this one. This is King Domino Origins. This is one of the things I wanted to talk about Gen Con in general. Like Ryan said, some publishers weren't there. A lot of the big ones weren't. There's a lot of medium publishers that weren't there either. I don't think Blue Orange was not there. However, there were some retailers, in particular, one of our friendly local game stores, Family Time Games, shout out. They were there and they did bang up business because they had a lot of consignment deals with publishers where they had product on the show floor that was not available elsewhere. And we're going to get to a couple others that were pretty big in that respect. But this is one of them, King Domino Origins. In fact, I think I barely heard about this.
I didn't realize it was coming out at Gen Con, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that this was going to be there. And they had it sitting there, lo and behold. So if you happen to walk by their booth, which a lot of people at Gen Con kind of pass by, retailer booths sometimes. But this year was a good year to go because they had a handful of games that you really couldn't find anywhere else, and they were first available at Gen Con. This one, I mean,
it's King Domino.
It's King Domino. We haven't played it. It has a prehistoric theme. I'm sure there's some things going on differently here. I actually bought this from their store after Gen Con, but I thought I'd include it here too. We'll definitely get this played because I think if it does enough unique things differently than King Domino, it might be one that we want to live stream.
Well, people loved King Domino, so I mean that won a bunch of awards. So that's more King Domino's great. All right, I'm going to talk about these little small box games here. If you can even see, these were from board game tables. They had all of these cute little games out on the tables, like these little small box. And they actually had 3.
Along with Kabuto Sumo, right?
Well, yeah, they also had Kabuto Sumo, which we've seen, we've played, we've live streamed.
You've heard us talk about that
We've talked about Kabuto Sumo, but that ended up being a big hit at Gen Con.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In fact, when I was walking around the open play area at night, there were a lot of tables with people playing Kabuto Sumo on it, which was
and we knew
exciting.
that would be, when we played it, we knew that would be a great con game.
So I got 2 of the 3. There was 3. This is Sequoia and Mountain Goats. They also had one called GPS, but it didn't appeal to me as much. so I didn't grab it. And we're probably going to be live streaming these as well. And what's neat is the games come in their own boxes, but then they had an expansion pack for the whole
That's pretty cool.
trilogy that has some bonus content for all 3 games. Again, I mean, whether or not you like all 3, these are the 2 that definitely appealed to me the most.
And I assume they're light little games.
They are light little games. I mean, Mountain Goats. So funny story though. Mountain Goats was actually designed by the guy that did Arkwright, which is like one of the heavier games.
Really?
And he did this little Mountain Goats game. It's like a little push your luck game where you're just running up the mountains with the goats. So
that's like saying Tiddlywinks and Anachrony were designed by the same person.
They could have been, but these games were. They just had such a great table presence. I think that board game tables always had people around just looking at these. And I've got one more from them that I'll talk about in a second as well. So,
is that one that I asked you about before? Oh, okay.
Expect us probably to live stream these as well, just because they have such a great table presence. They're so nice to look at.
Okay, I've got this next one, again, off the top of the stack here. This one is called Suspects, and this is kind of a deduction murder mystery game. Not really deduction, but you're working cooperatively, going through a stack of cards. And I did read the rules on this the other night. I haven't played it yet. But effectively, it seems kind of like the card deck. It almost seems like Unlock. You're just going to start with the top card.
Oh, wow.
And then it branches. So you might choose something on the top card, and it says, go look for this card. So you're going to be kind of sorting through a deck of cards. And then there's...
wow.
There's definitely...
man,
there's
look
other
at that.
pieces of information. It is a sharp-looking game.
This is a super
sharp-looking game. And then they've got the solution in this cool little envelope. This one comes with 3 mysteries, and then they had this, which I thought was an expansion at first, but this is an introductory 1-hour mystery.
Oh,
so
cool.
This is meant to sort of, I think, get your feet wet with the game and experience it, and then the full game here. And I also wanted to mention, because we don't have a lot of their other games here at the table, Studio H or Hachette board games, they had a great showing at the show this year.
They did, and actually they had a lot of games that we will probably be showing you in the future. I went to get some of their games
and they were
on
out.
Sunday. They were out, sold out of almost every game that they had, which was fantastic for them.
But they had
not so great for us. They had Iki, which looked
Iki was being talked about like Ultri.
Yes,
which was a cooperative game from Antoine Bauza and illustrated by Vincent Dutray.
Also looked awesome.
Which I'm very intrigued about. Jeremy Howard up in our Milwaukee branch of MVM.
Right.
He has some of their other games, so hopefully he'll get some comment, or at least talk about them maybe on the next time where we're all together on Chit Chat or something like that. But they had a stellar presence. In fact, I think it was one of the biggest first presents I've seen at a con from them.
Yeah, it was. So.
Yeah.
I think, I don't remember seeing them in 2019.
Yeah, they're definitely making a run at it, for sure.
So talking about sold out games, I'll tell you that I went to the Arcane Wonders booth and I had...
Oh, we don't have this one.
Well, there's a couple. So I did manage to get the Hive, which is an expansion to Viral. Viral came out, 2016? This game's been out for...
2016 or 17.
Maybe
probably
17.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it was one of my top games.
I love this game. It's part of like the Dice Tower Essentials collection. I loved it, and I've been waiting for an expansion for years, and this is that expansion finally came out.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I'm glad it came out. But I do want to point out, so this is the only thing I was able to get from Arcane Wonders. They had Picture Perfect.
Picture Perfect looked
which
really cool.
Also, I was able to buy the figures. They had like special upgradable figures, plastic ones, so that when I do get the game, I will have those already. But the game completely sold out, as did the Aquatica stuff, the Aquatica and the expansion. So more things I really wanted to get, but Gen Con, you're running around from booth to booth, and it's pretty busy. So when I actually got time to like go and like to some of these games we bought, some of these games were provided to us for being content creators, but that one they just completely sold out of. So
yeah, and I think Jeremy Howard did get a copy of that.
Picture Perfect?
Picture Perfect.
Probably not the Aquatica stuff.
Maybe not the Aquatica stuff. I don't know if he had interest in that.
I'm hoping that they have more Picture Perfect to sell Origins, because that ended up being kind of a surprise hit for me. I didn't think that game was going to be as fun as it was.
Did you play it?
I did. I got to
demoed
play it. No, I actually had a friend that bought it, that was able to get it. And just that puzzle, as you can see here in this picture, of just like positioning these people at this table was super fun.
Yeah,
like you never have all of the information on any one guest, so you don't exactly know where they want to be. You just kind of have to use the information you have. to hope that you're scoring points.
It was absolutely a very clever and unique idea.
Oh,
for sure.
For sure.
It's very cool to see games where you're like, how did someone come up with that? Because in this world of board games where we get like thousands of board games released a year, it's amazing to see something like, wow, I never really ever would have thought of that.
Right.
That's kind of crazy. All right, my next one I'm going to do, I know a little bit about this. Good Games Publishing had a few games there, one of which that I've been looking forward to just because I like the look of it, is Land versus
This
Sea.
has a great look to it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm probably going to undersell this, but it is effectively kind of in the Carcassonne realm of gameplay.
Tile placement game.
And wait, it is I think 2 to 4 player game. It plays a little bit differently, but you're going to play either as the land, sort of the Team Land, or Team Sea, if you will.
Yeah, and it's kind of meant to be either 2 players that go head-to-head or 4 players that play in teams.
Yeah.
I think you can play 3 players as well, but it's really designed to be that like land versus sea
two
battle.
teams,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely want to get this played. This one screams to me as something that we could live stream for sure.
For sure. I already are wanting to.
And we'll maybe put up a picture here, but the way the board looks when you lay it out is really appealing to me. I just love the way this looks, and it's a nice little. And I can't remember the price point on this, but I think is incredibly attractive.
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
in the between $20 and $30 price point range, I think.
So another one from me. Actually, I'm going to talk about 3 games here, and that is let's pull out the Transformers, the G.I. Joe, and the Power Rangers deck building game. These all 3 came out from Renegade. Now, you might be familiar with the Power Rangers deck building game already. We even did a live stream of
But
the Power
this is a
Rangers.
different one.
This is a different one. This is Power Rangers Zeo. But this kind of plays just the same as Power Rangers does.
But it's standalone.
But it is completely standalone. I think you can mix and match heroes and villains from Zeo into the base game, but it is completely standalone. And then you have the Transformers deck building game, which was also designed by Matt Hyra, who did Power Rangers, and T.C. Petty, he's a
really?
Yeah, he's a great designer.
Yeah.
So Transformers is going to be similar to Power Rangers, except of course like you're transforming, like you can transform your cards instead of like the Rangers just flipping from one side to the other. Like literally, you're going from your Autobot form to your robot form. I mean, sure, this is nostalgia, but it's good. Same thing with the G.I. Joe one, and again, you're deck building, but you're not doing anything like what you're doing in Power Rangers or Transformers.
That's what blew me away by these.
Yeah, they're very different.
I legitimately thought that Renegade, they had Matt Hyra. He's got a lot of great lineage with deck building
DC
games.
deck building game is
Yeah,
his.
so I thought he was going to bring some of that same magic, and we saw that when we played the original Power Rangers. I assumed that they were basically going to be mostly reskins.
No.
Very, very different games for sure.
G.I. Joe is by far the differentest, or the most different. Because you're actually like, you're putting together your Joe squad. So you're recruiting G.I. Joes, you're getting vehicles and upgrades and things, and then you're sending them out on missions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, I haven't played it, but I saw the demo, and I got to do part of the demo with them at the Renegade booth. This is probably the one I'm actually most excited about. When I went into Gen Con, I was just like, okay, G.I. Joe. Like, I wasn't a big G.I. Joe kid. Like,
yeah, of these 3 properties, Transformers is the one that speaks most to me by far. But like you said, I think the gameplay of G.I. Joe sounds intriguing to me. And then this one, too, there's like this big grid of cards that I think represents the Matrix. Not the Matrix like as in Neo, but the Matrix from Transformers.
Yeah.
Where you're acquiring your cards and actually maneuvering around.
Yeah, so we'll probably play all 3 of these sometime in the near future. And I would like to give a more comprehensive breakdown as to like how these all play. But all 3 of these deck building games are available through Renegade.
Yeah, I'm most curious right now as to when Ryan's stack of games is going to
topple. It's going to fall? It's good.
Because he's taking out key components of the base of it.
Hey, I didn't build mine. I just built it to look good.
I'm going to stick with the theme of Renegade really quick and pull out yet another deck builder.
With a twist.
With a twist. No. This is.
I wouldn't compare them to the last deck builders.
This definitely isn't in that same line. This is sort of a more board game experience. I'd say this is. It doesn't play like Clank, but it's closer to Clank than it is those games.
It's definitely closer to Clank because it has. I mean, there's a huge board.
And you've played this.
I have played this one. And we're going to be live streaming this one as part of our, dare I say, Hollow stream again.
You dared and you did.
We're going to be playing this in October just to celebrate kind of the month of October. It's a very like horror themed game. You play as vampires.
You're playing as vampires. You're going down to the village. You're feasting on people.
Or turning them into thralls that will follow you around.
And it's got really, what I'd say, kind of cute cartoony art, which I love the contrast between the theme and the way the art looks.
They know the theme, but they still wanted it to be like a family game. So you're not going to see like macabre
that wouldn't
artwork
be,
and anything
that
like
wouldn't
that.
Exactly
like
be
it's
Renegade style.
It's all kind of like spooky, but yet like family friendly.
By the way, it's designed by a little known publisher, or little known designer, Richard Garfield.
Oh, you mean the designer of Magic the Gathering?
That's the one, and Bunny Kingdom and
Bunny
some
Kingdom.
of my favorite
tons.
games.
He's prolific.
Yeah, so Richard Garfield, I think that was one of the ones we mentioned in our preview for Gen Con.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we were able to get a hold of that.
All right, and let's just keep going because Renegade had a killer year this year.
Wow.
I got one more thing I grabbed from
Can you tell that we stopped by the Renegade booth?
Well, because I stopped by the Renegade booth because they had a lot of titles I was excited about. For Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, these are the new expansions that have come out, The Wolf and the Rat and Blood and Alchemy, and these are going to introduce new cards that you can use to build your decks. They're going to introduce new pre-constructed decks that you can play. I think each one of these has 2 pre-constructed decks. So we were talking about this before the show. If you're the kind of person that just wants to pop open a box and play, you can do that. And each one of these can go
that would be my speed.
Head to head. You do need the core pack because you'll need all of the tokens and basic cards and everything like that. But these will let you actually like just play right out of the box. And they're very cool. I mean, obviously, again, with the vampire theme.
Yeah, so this one is a little bit more macabre.
This one is definitely more of an adult
this is based on Vampire the Masquerade, so it's not cutesy and friendly.
It's not. No, this is a little darker. Probably not for the kids. It's I think 14 and up it's rated. But another one that you could probably expect during our Halloween
maybe
extravaganza. Yeah. So we'll see.
It's on the short list.
That's Rivals, and those are both expansions.
I'm gonna go with this. This wasn't new at Gen Con, I don't think, but I picked it up.
Box.
It's Time Bomb Evolution.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
From Yellow. Do you know what Time Bomb is?
I know of Time Bomb, and I've always wanted to play it.
In case you don't know, is the original Don't Mess with Cthulhu. Don't Mess with Cthulhu was based on Time Bomb when it was brought over here, and then this is basically a newer, updated version of Time Bomb with a few more things going on. All I need to know is that it's similar to Don't Mess with Cthulhu, and that's enough for me to want to have tried it. And I am always a sucker for the way Yellow's games look. Like, I just have always been a fan of their style of art. It has obviously it has a very French look to it. A lot of French game publishers have that sort of like, almost like The Hunger looked. You know, the games that look like that are sort of like, no matter what the subject matter is, they have kind of a semi-family, family-friendly look. So I'm going to be playing this the next time I'm together with at least 4 people.
We didn't bring it out, but another big Yellow hit this year was Korra, which we've had for a while. We've had for a while, and Dave and I have played a lot of Korra while we've had it. We even live streamed Korra recently. So at this point, I've played Korra quite a bit, so it wasn't like one that I was super excited about seeing in Gen Con just because we've already played it.
But it was Yellow's big game.
But I was excited to see it out, and I was excited to see how many people were buying it. I'm in several Discord groups. People were talking about Korra. People were setting up games to play Korra. I mean, it was a big hit for them, which I think it's deserved. And what I love seeing about Korra is all of the tweets and all of the Facebook and Instagram stuff I've seen where people are just going wild over that dual-layered board and how your card fits like right inside the board. Like that's such a cool.
I mean, I like that too.
It's a cool little thing that they didn't have to do.
Yeah, it's been so long since we've had it that all that's kind of wore off on me a little bit. But I did remember when I first opened that feeling. Oh, that's nice. The way you put your civilization in there. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is Floodgate Games in general, but the big one for them this year at the show was Vivid
And this
Memories.
won Best of Show.
Did it?
Con, yeah.
Really? Yep. I did not know that.
Their booth did. I don't know if this particular game. Sorry, but
so
Floodgate as a whole.
Vivid Memories is something we had a chance. We didn't get a demo of it, but we kind of got an explanation, and we talked about it in our show coverage, where you're sort of recreating or connecting memories, childhood memories, that in the pursuit, thematically anyway, in the pursuit to leading to like what you want to do when you grow up.
Which is cool, and not like what are you going. This isn't like that one game where you play out your whole life and you like actually get a profession.
No.
This is like when you're a kid, it's like you could be an astronaut or like a firefighter.
And that is really just the theme because the gameplay itself is quite abstract.
Yeah.
You're collecting these little sort of diamond-shaped tokens and putting them in this sort of like interesting board that's dual layered with these little hexes, and using those things to connect in particular ways, noting the color and the symbols on these things to connect to basically make points at the end, but wrapped around that theme of your memory.
And the theme works. I mean, you're each one of those little tokens represents a memory, and you're literally chaining them together in what is essentially your mind, trying to make these like paths, which is pretty cool.
You got another one? Who's going to run out first?
That's a good question. Let's talk about this one really quick, because this is just another great Funkoverse game. I mean, Funkoverse, if you don't already know what Funkoverse is, then you're missing out. They've taken the idea of Funko Pops and turned them into games.
Yeah.
With each pack coming with some smaller little like Funko Pops, but actually what I would consider to be a very solid game wrapped around it. When we first sat down to play Funkoverse, like years ago, when they showed us their little sneak peek demo, a couple years ago, I think we were all very impressed by just how much of a game there was within that, and there's a insane amount of strategy involved for what is essentially a family game that you can play with your kids. And of course, I had to pick up the Marvel sets with the Thanos set. I mean,
Marvel set. I mean, Funkoverse is not a game that I think enthusiast gamers like us will keep coming back to. But man, when they tie it to properties like this, it's hard not to want to consider it.
They've got Harry Potter stuff. They've got the Golden Girls. There was one that was the Kool-Aid Man. I mean, they've got a lot. They've got whatever you're looking for.
I mean, Funko has some licenses, so they can probably go pretty deep on that.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject, actually, of talking about Marvel, I want to talk about one thing that I saw that I cannot show you guys, and I can't even really talk about it. But I got the chance to play Unmatched, the Marvel sets for Unmatched.
Oh, yeah.
And I was very clear about what I could talk about and what I couldn't talk about.
I'm nervous right now.
Here's what I'm allowed to say, that I got to play it, and that I had a really good time playing it. So I got to play some of the heroes that have already been announced, like Moon Rider, or Moon Knight and Ghost Rider, against Daredevil and Elektra.
I want the Moon Rider expansion.
All I have to say is this: it does some really cool things. Like each one of these sets, I think, just keeps introducing new difficulty levels to the game, like new complexities. And Battle of Legends 2 is coming out soon. We're probably going to have that to actually show you guys. We didn't have one to actually take home from Gen Con.
That's the one with Bloody Mary, right?
Yes, that's the one that's actually coming out soon. So we can show more of that. We can talk more about that. The Marvel stuff, all I can say is I played it, and it's just gotten me so much more pumped for when those sets actually release.
It is cool just to see the Marvel. I mean, I know a lot of people think the Marvel license is kind of like going everywhere, but it's cool to see it.
Let it.
Especially if you're a fan of Unmatched, right?
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to do a couple because Ryan's only got a few, and there's one big stack of one game here. One I wanted to talk about, not just Camel Up, but I also wanted to talk about Plan B.
Wait.
What?
Well, let's talk about what this is not first.
Well, yeah. So you're looking at Camel Up Off season, and interestingly enough, we talked about this, Jeremy Howard and I, in our preview for Gen Con, and we were inaccurate because it is not an expansion for Camel Up. This is a standalone game that plays nothing at all like Camel Up. If you can imagine them doing a game that's set in the Camel Up universe,
that's what it is.
Crazy as that sounds, that's what they've done here. And this is a game about going to market with your camels in the off season. I haven't read through all the rules, but this is not a race game. This is a game where you're going to be collecting things and taking items to market on the backs of these camels. So I'm actually more intrigued to play this.
I'm intrigued to play it too, but nothing about this cover says anything to me but Camel Up expansion.
No, that's true.
100%. I would never think that was anything else.
Now, it's probably not a bad thing because there's plenty of Camel Up fans.
Sure, but the fact that they called it Camel Up Off Season and not like Camel something else, that was like...
Camel Down?
Well, they could have done a similar logo. I mean, they could have put the Camel Up logo on the box.
I mean, that's why we made the mistake when we did our preview, is we saw this and just assumed
they could have just called the game Off Season, and they could have had the Camel Up logo in the corner.
True. True. The other thing, though, we wanted to talk about their booth is, and we have content on the channel, was Azul Queen's Garden. Emily and I did a first impressions sort of review, if you will, after just like 1.5, maybe 2 plays. Ryan had a chance to play it at their booth a little bit.
Yeah, we played a couple rounds of it, which is almost half the game.
Definitely check out our content on that, but I'll just say this. This is definitely a big step up from what they've done with Azul to date. And while it feels reminiscent of Azul, it definitely feels quite different.
Well,
Because it's the first game, for instance, that doesn't have just all the coasters
Yeah, that's true.
with all the tiles on them at once. It kind of slowly comes out, and that leads to one of the biggest differences in how this game feels.
And there's no like market in the middle either, which is this is the first one where like you usually take the tiles, put the other tiles in the market.
Yeah.
Watch the video. I mean, if
Watch
you're
the video and
interested-
look out for the game. I think that's going to be an Essen release, and I believe they said, if it hopefully gets here on ships, it's supposed to be available here before the end of this year.
Because I didn't even know that they were making another Azul.
No, this was...
So I thought Azul was done. Like, they
Azul-
did 3. I thought that was it.
This Azul Queen's Garden was easily the biggest surprise for me at the show. Not based on the gameplay, but just based on the fact that we didn't expect to find out about something of that significance.
All right. You've been asking about this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about this one. This game it took me completely by surprise. It's a small game, 20 minutes to play. But what it is it's ants at a picnic. You're laying out all of this food in a trail that leads to the picnic basket. And there's different colored ants that want different colored foods. And what's neat about it is on your turn, you get to choose an ant and you're going to move it to the next colored food that matches its color. It's going to eat that food and you're going to take it in front of you. So if you have moved the red ant, it moves to wherever the next apple is and you take that apple and you put it in front of you. But eventually you reach the picnic basket and the ant that reaches the picnic basket first goes to the top, which is 5 points. And all of your fruit that matches that apple's color is now worth 5 points apiece.
Oh, it matches the ant's color?
That matches the ant's color. So there's this interesting thing of like, if I get a bunch of reds, you guys, everyone else at the table maybe wants to race one of the other ants up first.
Right.
So that I don't get 5 points for every red. Meanwhile, you guys are all doing yellow. Maybe you're all getting 5 points for yellow. So I got to start getting in on yellow. I mean, there's this whole idea of like, they called it like, commodity speculation.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're collecting these fruits and you don't really know what the value of them is going to be until you actually get to the end of the game. If you collect a ton of fruits that end up being worth 1 point each, you've really wasted a lot of time. So it's a great introduction, I think, to that kind of mechanic, if you want to call it that, because this is definitely not what you'd think of when you think of, commodity speculation.
No.
Like
this is one of those games where you play it and
bite-sized little game.
Look what you did there.
20 minutes, also has great table presence. So I'm excited to play this one. I think we played it at Gen Con. I think you're really going to like this one.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those games where you play the game and you feel like you've been tricked into learning about commodity speculation.
Exactly, that's what it does.
All right, I'm going to talk about a couple here. Well, I'm going to talk about one and then I'll let Ryan talk about the other one.
Yeah.
Although, have you played Iberian Gage?
I have.
So I haven't played
Iberian
this,
Gage.
but what I did, I got this from Capstone's booth. And Capstone had also a great show.
Yeah.
They had Rift Force, they had Iberian Gage, and 2 of their other Gage games.
Yeah, Irish Gage and Ride the Rails.
Yeah, Ride the Rails.
Which is like their Iron Rails. I think what is it called right here? Yeah, Iron Rails series.
Yeah, Iron
this
Rails
is game
series.
3 in that.
And then they also had Juicy Fruits that
Yeah.
did quite well for them. And then sort of their heaviest game that's been available most recently is Coffee Traders, which I think they did pretty well with there too.
Which all of those other games we already have. This was the newest one. And of course we got Corrosion, which we talked about already in a video, which is coming out later this year.
Release, but
not a Gen Con release. So we love Capstone game stuff. So
they do great stuff.
Iberian Gage is great. I mean, it is not like Irish Gage or Ride the Rails. What I like about these games is that they are all thematically connected, but mechanically very different. This is the closest thing to like a stock speculation game.
Yeah.
You are trying to increase the stock of certain train companies. So if you play each one of these games, by the end of it, you've kind of gotten all the makings of a heavier 18xx game, but they're breaking it down. I think if you play through these games, you're kind of ready to level up to like Age of Steam.
If you like them all.
If you like them all, yeah. If you like what this game is doing, then you go play Age of Steam, then you go play an 18xx, and that's what happened to me. So we've been talking about how I've been getting more into train games, and like this is like right. So sitting down to play Iberian Gage, I already had a great understanding of how it would be played because it's one of those weird ones where your money doesn't matter. It's all about what the company has.
Yeah.
And when you buy shares, the shares go to the company, dividends pay out to the company. You want your company to have a lot of money. But other players, if they even own a little stock in that company, they can spend the company's money maybe doing stupid things just to drive the stock price of that company down.
Yeah,
so
Clay
it's super
thought this
interesting.
one. I went to him and I said, "Look, Clay, I have little to no interest in railroad games.
Yeah.
Which one of these should I get?
This one.
And
for sure.
that's what he said for sure.
This is my
Iberian
favorite of the
Games.
3 so far.
So I am going to try this and probably report back later. We'll see what I think.
I do have one little one that I want to throw out really quick, and this is Pinpoint. This is just a little party game. There's 3 games in one here.
There's one that you liked most.
There's
of
one
all,
that
right?
I liked a lot. The other 2 were like, okay. There's one that reminded me a lot of Wavelength, where I'd rather just play Wavelength if I'm being honest. But there was one in here called Least Most, which is fantastic. And you lay out 6 cards that represent 6 characters, whether fictional, historical, real, modern, whatever. And there's 6 names out there. And then you're going to draw a card. And you're going to ask who's the least or the most likely to do something. Who is the least or most likely to get a speeding ticket? Who is the least or most likely to win a medal or award for something?
And I'm just looking at the card on the back of the box. The option they have here is Aladdin or Peppa Pig.
Right, exactly. And you're looking out there and you're not just thinking, okay, well, who's most likely to get a speeding ticket? And one of them was like Spider-Man. And I was like, well, definitely not Spider-Man because he never drives a car.
So are people making arguments at the table?
You can talk a little bit back and forth,
okay.
but really what you're doing is putting it down, and then every other player that voted the same as you get a point for every player. So if you're thinking the same as other players at the table, you're getting the most points. So like looking at you and being like, Spider-Man? Like, he's definitely the least likely. You don't talk about it beforehand, but after the reveal,
Sure.
you definitely talk about it.
Yeah, it sounds like a game that inspires conversation at the
Correct.
table, and everyone reveals their card, and there's the one person who voted the other way, and they're like,
Right, why
what
would
were you
you-
guys all thinking? And then they make their argument, and either people think he's crazy, or they're like, oh yeah, that actually makes
I'll
sense.
never forget, we had one came up that was least likely to be flirted with, and most of us picked Richard Nixon, and one player didn't, and we're like, well, no, like,
Well, I'd flirt with Richard Nixon.
well, would you now?
I don't know. I don't know what the other option was.
Well, he picked Ron Weasley from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah, I guess
I think clearly
that seems pretty clear. I think Ron was flirted with in the movie.
yeah, but Nixon never been flirted with in his
Probably,
life.
I'm sure his wife once upon a time.
All right, we got 2
I'm
big
gonna
games
let you
left.
talk
here.
about this one here.
Oh, that's right. This is
I
just
know
a brief
nothing
one.
about
You know
this.
nothing about this. This is a game called Jiangxi, Blood in the Banquet Hall. This is a game that I've been looking forward to for a long time. It's designed by Senfung Lim and Banana Chan. This is a role-playing game that gives you kind of a board game experience. It comes in a box. It gives you, there's like tokens and everything you need to play in this one box. So it's definitely approachable for...
Beautiful art.
Oh, it's gorgeous art. I mean, absolutely fantastic art. And the designers are great. They've designed board games and role-playing games. The game itself is about it's a Chinese game where you're serving food in this restaurant that is mostly patronized by basically like Chinese vampires.
Okay.
And so like it's this interesting. It's kind of funny. It's kind of dark.
I feel like I've never seen that game theme before.
Never.
No.
And what I love about it is like you've got serious Chinese development here, like people that are close to the source material, that grew up with these myths, and I know the entire team was very diverse and like bringing this story. I mean, I cannot wait to actually play this one. I think this is going to be my big Halloween RPG session this year.
The tagline here, run the family restaurant, survive the night.
Exactly. I mean, who would have thought that kind of combination?
That's pretty funny. That's pretty
when
fun.
Sen first told me about that, I was like, that idea sounds crazy.
It does.
And it is crazy. And yet here it is, and I am dying to play it. So I will give my after-action report once we get a chance to play this, probably close to Halloween. So.
All right, we're down to 2, and I'm going to start with Unfathomable. This is another one that, as you probably know, Asmodee Fantasy Flight, they weren't there. Fantasy Flight had an in-flight report on Wednesday night. It sounds like, I haven't watched it, but from what I've heard, people didn't think they got much out of that in-flight report.
No, there was some new stuff mentioned, some new Marvel Champion stuff.
Yeah, but that's about it. I mean, it's hard to make a splash when you're not at the show, typically, and everyone's kind of excited about that. But Unfathomable, which everyone's been waiting for, this is the re-implementation of Battlestar Galactica set in their Arkham Files universe. This one was, again, available at some of the retailers, and our local retailer was there, and he'd gotten, I think, 100 or so copies to sell at the show, so we got one of those as well. And I don't even think he sold out of it.
No? Close, though, probably.
It was close, but it blew me away that he didn't sell out of this because it's not going to be available till like October.
Right, yeah, that was your chance to get it.
And that was your chance to get it, and I'm really glad we were able to pick one up. And it just wasn't publicized, right? Because, no one knows to go by one of the retailer, storefronts at Gen Con looking for stuff that they would otherwise find at publishers. But they had a ton of games there that were not otherwise at the show.
I mean, this is the perfect setting to if you're going to reskin Battlestar Galactica to something. So for those who don't know, obviously Battlestar Galactica was based on the TV show. You have your ship, the Battlestar Galactica, and then you had your humans, which were piloting the ship, and what were called Cylons, which that was the alien race. But the twist was Cylons could look like people. And so you could have characters on board that were actually Cylons.
Very thematic to the show, by the way. The whole show was about that.
So taking that and putting it on a boat instead of a spaceship, with Arkham Files characters that we know already.
And people who are effectively hidden deep ones, if you will.
Correct. And we have people that are hidden deep ones that are like really like cultists or like monsters that are disguised as humans. I mean, it's perfect. I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, I've never played Battlestar Galactica.
It's quite the experience, I'll say that. This is one of those game day events. Like this is like it could be like a 4-hour game.
Which is not at all my thing, but with that said, Alicia and I got into the whole Arkham Horror card game last year, and it kind of got me into the whole, IP. So I'm really looking forward to this. We need to get a good group. The game says 3 to 6 players. Ryan tells me
play it at 6.
That you really need to play it at
because the more players you have, the more like deduction elements there are, the more misinformation there is. Like the less likely you are to guess who the
True.
Well, I don't want to say. I almost said Cylons.
My guess is it also means the longer the game will be.
It does, but I've never had a game of Battlestar Galactica that felt too long. Like it may have been 4 hours, but it was a good 4 hours.
I believe you that 3 players is probably not the best experience.
I've never
but
done it
I'd like to think that 4 and 5 would work. But
I don't know. Tell me in the comments below.
Yes, please do.
I'm a 6-player guy for this one.
If you've played Battlestar Galactica, before I play this, tell me if I can play it at 4 players.
You can play it at 4.
I know, but I want if it'll be a good experience.
I think 6 is the best experience. All right. We got one more. So let's get
one more, and it's a doozy.
Let's get to it. This is a doozy. This is Unsettled. Whoa, look at that.
Actually, we don't have just one more.
Well, one more that we actually got that was available at Gen Con.
Yes,
this was available to pick up at Gen Con. I don't know if Kickstarter backers were able to pick it up there, if they had to wait for.
They had extraordinarily limited copies.
They did have very limited copies. We were lucky enough to get one. Because we're huge fans of Orange Nebula. I mean, their games in the past we've loved.
I'm one of the world's biggest Vindication
fans. I remember
fans.
when Vindication came out,
I
were
was
like
an advocate.
Everyone was like, David, will you teach us Vindication?
And I did.
You did.
I loved just teaching Vindication. I haven't even experienced Unsettled yet, but I'm looking for it. It's a very, very different game.
Yeah, and it is a very different game. It's like a cooperative adventure game where you're exploring planets, but the focus is it's like Star Trek. The focus is on like exploration. It's not a combat game. It's not a...
No, it's exploration and discovery, which is very much speaks to me. So I'm very interested to see how that feels.
And each one of these boxes represents like one of the planets that you can uncover, and you'll see every planet has its own secrets to uncover, its own things to interact with, and there's several in the box, but we got 4 more. I don't imagine that this is all.
Yeah, I think there's 2 in the box, and these 4 more. It's obviously, I remember talking to them early on when they were developing this, and it's definitely a system.
Yeah, exactly.
For which they could, if this blows up, they could...
Well, I feel like it has blown up. The Kickstarter did super well.
They could put these planets out endlessly.
These are easy and easy not to design, because I'm sure there's a lot. But yeah, we'll have an unboxing up on the channel.
Yeah, we will pull pieces and parts of this thing out on camera and show you that in a little bit more detail, but we were really stoked to see that. They do a great job of presenting their games, and that is no exception. So those were the games that you could kind of get, so you could buy or maybe pick up at Gen Con. There were some games that we got that are more in the range from prototypes that we're probably going to be doing some content on to final production copies that were very early, that aren't available yet and probably won't be for a while. I'm going to start with one of the production games, and this is one I picked up on the last day. It's a heavy box, and it's now or never.
I cannot. I'm so glad that we got this. This is not a game. I don't know when it's coming out exactly, but this is actually like a production copy. This is one of the demo copies they actually had out at Gen Con. So
yeah, this is not a prototype for sure. This feels like a finished version of the game that I think they airlifted over just a very short or a small amount of them. He had told me, I don't want to quote him, but I talked to Ryan, and as you know, things are tenuous right now in terms of getting things over here and shipping. So he was fingers crossed, hoping that it would be in the next couple months for sure. But I am looking forward to this too. I was actually a fan. I never played Above and Below. I did play a fair amount of Near and Far, and I'm interested to see how this is developed. Yeah. And you've played Sleeping Gods, which I know is separate.
Which is very different, but
very different.
Sleeping Gods, that's another one too that was a big hit at Gen Con that we already have, so we didn't grab a copy of that, but it's so good.
Yeah, he in particular, hopefully I'm not sharing too much inside baseball, but he had a great Gen Con. He said it was one of their most successful Gen Cons.
I think Sleeping Gods was a big part of that.
Yeah,
that game was a big hit.
It was sort of like lightning in a bottle because, like Ryan said earlier, there were people hungry to buy. There were not the big publishers sort of taking all the attention. So a lot of the smaller publishers were able to sell a lot of the hot games, and Sleeping Gods was absolutely one of those.
Was one of the, and this, so if you stop by the booth, you probably saw this. We'll do some coverage of it. I mean, I am ready to dive.
I have looked through this, and I'm intrigued.
All right, you want to grab your other one too?
I will.
I want to say
the other one.
I got one. Because the other one is actually coming out kind of soon, right?
I want to say this is an Essen release.
Oh, this is.
And we can't show much of this. I think there is some embargo stuff.
There is an
embargo.
We can't
like peel this apart and show you all the pieces.
Even though we really want to, because there are a lot of pieces and parts in this game,
and the board
they're gorgeous.
The board is insane. In fact, I wish I had done research to see if the board was out there in the public.
I don't know that it is. I don't think it is yet.
I don't think it is. This is a big, medium plus weight Euro coming from De Vere. And you've heard Ryan and I say this a number of times. De Vere is incredibly well known, and to us, they're the company that packs a ton of game into a little box.
Right, Red Cathedral, Silk, Paris City of Light.
Yeah, and guess what? This is a big box.
So, but I think the scale of content that they packed into this is about.
Yeah, well, it's got some stuff going on.
I mean, this is we had the opportunity at least to play this over digitally before, because these prototypes literally just arrived in the States.
Yeah.
So we haven't even had time to really even play it since we picked this up at Gen Con a couple days ago. But
and I do think this is a
I'm
probably final production
copy.
Yes. I mean, this was in shrink wrap, and it's very well and nice produced. And we will have more content on this soon. I hate to tease you, but we will spill all the beans when we can and tell you about all the cool things going on the board. I'll just say this: the board has a lot going on.
It's a lot. You're going to want to pay attention to that one. So we got one more thing, right?
We do have one more thing.
I'm going to bring this up. This was my big Gen Con surprise.
Based on the gameplay alone.
This is Resurgence. This is coming from Stan Kordonsky. You may have seen us interview him during our Gen Con coverage. He texted us and asked us if we could meet him with no indication of what he was going to show us. But I've known Stan for a while, and I've loved Stan's games. Dice Hospital.
That was his first one, right? Dice Hospital?
Yeah. Endless Winter, which was on Kickstarter last year, did fantastic, or maybe even earlier this year.
Yeah,
time has no meaning, but
he's quickly made a really big splash.
He has made a huge splash.
Pretty spectacular.
And so, from the second that we sat down and I saw this on the table, I was like, for sure. It was like, I want to know more about this game.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing a preview of this for Stan and his campaign that's running before the end of the year, I think.
Yeah.
But this is set in post-apocalyptic Moscow. And we said a lot of this in our content, but I do want to give it a repeat here because it's worth you taking note of this game. The game mechanics start with an inspiration in part from something like Orleans.
Which is one of my number one games.
It is my number one game to date.
And it's up there for me.
And so it's got a bag building element with the little discs that represent varying workers, and you can add more of different types of workers, if you will. And then you're taking those, and instead of necessarily playing them on your player board, which you can do, right?
Yeah, you
as you clear off your player board.
You can play them on your player board, which represents your secret base.
Your underground base.
Your underground bunker or whatever. And you can actually upgrade that bunker over time, revealing new worker placement spots for your workers
to go. For just you. But most of them are going to be placed out on the main board, so you are placing these things out in a competitive fashion with the other players. And the last thing I'll say about that, because we don't want to do the full preview now,
right?
Is the cool thing is when you pull your workers out of the bag, instead of just doing that, you put them behind this screen on this little board that has 3 different sectors that are represented out on the board. It has 3 sectors with each sector having a number of spaces. When everyone reveals, you're going to sort of look where they're all going, and that's going to have some impact on some sort of traditional
control,
Euro tracks.
Yeah, there's you can send them through the metro, because so if you've like Metro Last Light, you're like going up through the subway
Yeah.
system. You can go to the harbor, which means you're coming in from the ocean, or you can just place them on your own player board.
But you take turns after that.
But you'll take turns after
placing
that.
them.
But that idea of getting area control in those 3 areas, like going up those tracks, is so cool because it makes you second guess where you want to go. Because maybe you really want to spot, but maybe you really want to go up that track because going up those tracks gets you resources. And if you're trying to chain your turn, if you're planning your turn ahead and you need a particular resource, you can get it from going there, or you can gamble. If you send the most guys to that area and you go up that track, you'll get maybe that resource easier. So
yeah,
wow,
we've got to
quite a
stop
brain
before
butter.
we go too far because I can tell you
Coverage soon.
we're going to have coverage very soon, and this is one of those games where it's just a joy to explain how it's played, but there's so many things going on, and I just wanted to stop short because we could go on and add, and then you do this, and there's this thing, and there's cards, and it's got a lot of things going on, and all of them, when we learned it, when he was giving us the overview, there's a number of times where I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I know. Everything is like, oh man.
Everything he was saying was pushing another button where we were like going, oh, that's pretty cool. So I am looking, and you've played it now, right?
I have. We played the demo with Stan, and I've actually played a full game of it, and it lived up to it. I mean, it was fantastic. So expect to hear more about that soon. But again, just like we want to say thank you guys for watching all of our Gen Con coverage.
Absolutely.
And also just a big thank you and a shout out to Gen Con. I think that they did a great job this year. I know there's been some criticism online of some things, the way they were handled, but from boots on the floor, I do want to say like I think they did the best job they possibly could.
They made the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
You know, we're all going through a rough time navigating all this, and I think they did. I agree. I think they did a really good job of it.
They had plenty of space on the floor to take a breather, to step away from people. When the lines got too long and people started trying to pile in, even though they were saying stop, they actually opened the doors 15 minutes early just to get people out, to get people to stop crowding around the doors.
They effectively managed around bad behavior.
Correct.
Well,
and they removed people that weren't wearing masks. They would come by even the game rooms. So I just want to say a big thank you to that whole Gen Con team. I mean, they were fantastic from day one to the end. So hopefully next year, Gen Con is a little bit back to normal.
Yeah, hopefully. We didn't get too many opportunities to do the kind of things after hours that we normally do. We did a little bit, but not as much.
There wasn't a lot of those events.
There's not as much hanging out at the table and just having fun, playing a bunch of games. Hopefully next year. Hopefully we're not dealing with that.
Right.
But until next year, or until the next time you see us on a video here, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then. Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.